10 years ago, when you were here, I mean, this was a year before the crisis happened, before the Lehman collapse. What's the biggest change you see now versus then?
I mean, the financial system in the United States has changed radically. Leverage has been reduced enormously. Risk has been reduced enormously in the banking system. I think the regulators in the United States actually did a very good job post-crisis. And for the first time in all the years that I've covered bank stocks, I can honestly say I think the financial system of the United States is safe.
Yeah, you said you're sleeping a little bit better at night
Yes.
these days. But do you think banks globally are generally in better shape now? I mean, you talk about how banks were too big to fail back then. We see the balance sheets of many of the American banks have now ballooned as well. Chinese banks are the largest in the world. Do you think we fixed the structural issues now?
I can only speak about the United States being in far better shape than it was. I'd say Europe is better, but not good enough. I think Canada is okay, but I think Canada is going to have some issues with their housing market. I can't really speak to Asia.
What about the human element of what really led to the crisis? I mean, the greed factor of all this. I think it was Whitney Toulson recently that said, it seems like we're seeing a little bit more sanity and stupid in what we saw back then. Do you agree?
I think the incentive structures back then were warped. The people who ran securitization desks were compensated purely on volume. One of the things I like to say about the financial crisis that we learned is that incentives trump ethics every time, and the incentives were poor. They're better now, but they were very poor back then.
You mentioned Europe can do a little bit better. You've been pretty negative about some of these European banks. What are your thoughts now about Deutsche Bank and the others, which I think they're still kind of in the thick of their problems right now?
Deutsche Bank has real profitability issues. They haven't spent money on technology in a very, very long time. They're probably undercapitalized. I think they'll probably raise capital again next year. Deutsche Bank's a problem bank. I think it has to shrink dramatically.
You're seeing more consolidation, you think, in some of these European banks? Or?
I can't speak to Europe whether there'll be consolidation or not. I think there's definitely going to be consolidation in the United States, which is driven by how much companies like JP Morgan are spending on technology, which is about $10 to $11 billion a year, versus much smaller amounts to the regional banks. So the regions are going to have to merge to bulk up.
I know you don't look too much into China now, but what do you think is, if you talk about excessive leverage, is that where we're going to see the root of it now in this time of the cycle? I mean, what do you think China is in the cycle at the moment?
I'm not going to comment on China. I haven't studied China in a very long time, and I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to talk about it.